Welcome to the Menopause Stories podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tamara Beckford, founder and medical director of Truly Balanced Wellness Care. This is the space where we stop the guesswork and start the optimization. We're pulling back the curtain on that midlife hijack and giving high-achieving women the clinical roadmaps and unfiltered stories they need to reclaim their edge. Let's get into today's story. What's the difference between perimenopause and menopause? I often get this question, and it's an important one. So I think it actually deserves its own episode. Here is how it goes. All right, let me tell you. I hear about this in my practice so often. I see women ask about it over and over and over on social media, in the comment section, group chats, between their friends. They're trying to figure out, is it the same thing? Perimenopause, premenopause, menopause? What is the difference? Alrighty, I know that this is something that you guys will be able to get once I finish going through it, right? So I know you've been trying to piece it together, symptoms, this, I heard this from my friend, I heard this from my mom, my aunt, but don't worry about it. We're gonna get that done today, right? Welcome back to Menopause Stories Podcast. I'm Dr. Tamara Beckford, and this episode is dedicated to you. I wanted to record this for a long time, but I'm I've recorded the perimenopause things, I've recorded the menopause, but why not do what's the difference between them? Especially because it can be so confusing, and women want to know, am I in perimenopause? Am I in menopause? Where am I? Alrighty, let's get this going, right? So the transition, I probably never really explained it to you, so I'm going to do it in a way that's clear and simple. I'm going to say simple. I'm not going to say hopefully simple, because you're going to get it because it's simple, right? So today we're going to go through the difference. So I want you to realize that there are actually 3 phases that you're going to go through as a lady once you have finished having babies, right? So once you move beyond the childbearing age, we're going to be going through 3 phases. So let's get the words in plain language as to what it is. So we have perimenopause, right? So perimenopause, I'm going to write it. So that is the transition years, right? So those are the years leading up to when you have your final period. Those are the years when the hormone levels start to shift and swing. That roller coaster. Those are the years if you're in your 40s and people are getting on your nerves and you're getting that rage, but then the next day you're fine and you're like, hey, how you doing? Who was I yesterday? I'm such a different person today. Those are those hormonal shifts. That's when your ovaries, they're still working, they're still producing the hormones, but they're kind of winding down. And you would have heard me talking about it, that the decline in your hormone doesn't happen like a roller coaster or like a slope. Back when you remember and trying to find X in math class, yeah, it's not like just that slope. It really occurs in an undulating fashion. So it's still going down, but it goes up and down, but when you look at it from an eagle's eye view, all of that is really decreasing, right? So it's winding down. Your ovaries are still producing hormones, but just not at the level that it was during your childbearing age or during the time when you were an adolescent or early 20s, right? And that's barring that you don't have any other complicated medical issues that could be going on. Alrighty, so that's usually that transition part, and that's kind of when we start noticing some of those symptoms that people hear a lot, where it's I'm starting to have the mood swings, or I'm starting to have the hot flashes, I'm having irregular periods. So notice you're still having periods, but it's irregular. I'm starting to have the problem sleeping. Those are usually some of the telltale signs that you're going through perimenopause. You might still have regular periods at the beginning, but then if you really start tracking it, they might start to become irregular, right? Now, peri is literally means around. Going back to your grammar school days and elementary school days, remember the perimeter or perimeter, depending on me. I'm from the Caribbean, so I say perimeter. But perimeter, it's literally peri means around. So this is the phase around the menopause portion, right? So after perimenopause, we now have the next phase, which is menopause. So menopause is literally, the definition of menopause is going 12 full months in a row without a period. That's literally the official definition of menopause. So menopause is 12 months in a row without having a period. Now, I've heard, some women, they're like, I made it to 11 months and darn it, it came. Yeah, that means that you start right back over again. So you need 12 months in a row, not 12 months. And, if I calculate within the last 15 months, 12 of them, I didn't have a period. No, it's 12 months in a row. So think about it. The birthday of your last period, that day is menopause. Now, once you go to the day after that, you are literally in postmenopause. So postmenopause is after you have done 12 months in a row, without a period. The day after that, you're postmenopausal. And the term postmenopause will fit until the rest of your days. From that day forward, you are postmenopausal, right? So many symptoms you start to hear about, such as the GSM, the genital urinary syndrome of menopause. We talk about that because of that point, your estrogen levels is either at low or no. She's barely there, right? So I hope this helps. Perimenopause, the years around your menopause, that birthday, 1 year anniversary of not having any period, 12 months in a row, that day is menopause. After that, everything else is post-menopause, right? So what's a great way to think about this? So perimenopause is the road, and menopause is the mile markers along that you're passing on the road. Month 1, 2, 3, 4. And then postmenopause is everything else afterwards. Why is this getting so confusing, Dr. Beckford? Okay, I know. Like, why? Here it is. I think what happens is a lot of times we use the word menopause to describe everything. Like, I'm going through menopause. But now we know that there are some distinction between before, the day of, and everything afterwards. I hope it starts to make some sense. And, it starts to give a little bit of understanding as to what you're feeling and why you are feeling that way during these different phases. Most of the time, people talk about like hot flashes only during menopause, but women can have hot flashes during perimenopause. And there's some women who never have hot flashes during perimenopause. But if you understand that during perimenopause, there is a fluctuation of your hormones, then it'll make sense why sometimes you'll feel okay and then sometimes you don't feel fine, right? Why is it that some days you might get your labs checked and during perimenopause and your labs are horrible, but if you had it checked another time, they look great. But irrespective of that, you still feel like crap. So it matters in a very, very practical way. So let's talk about, when does perimenopause start, right? So perimenopause can start as early as your mid-30s. Most women are in full-blown perimenopause in their 40s, the early 40s, right? So in the mid-30s, late 30s, you might notice some symptoms. So not everyone has, like I said, this hot flash. So if you're not having hot flash, it doesn't mean that you're not in perimenopause, right? When we look in retrospect, some of the first symptoms that we feel, it can be mood swings. So your mood starts to change. You become a little bit more irritable, right? But that's not usually something that we look at like, oh my gosh, I'm becoming more irritable. I wonder if I'm in perimenopause. No, we usually say, I'm just probably just going through something. And, you know, I'm just having like a bad week, or having a bad couple of weeks, right? We usually don't associate it with perimenopause because most of the time it's so subtle. But then once it starts to pile up on top of each other and becomes unbearable, that's when we're like, oh snap, right? So you might start having the mood swings, but paired up with the mood swings, you might start having anxiety, or you might start having depression. And paired with that, you might start noticing that your periods are becoming irregular. Either they are every other month, or even, spacing out even more. Maybe one month you started having a heavy period, another month you had a light period. So those are the changes that you are noticing. So when you pair that up, then you might notice that persistent 2, 3 a.m. I'm waking up, and I'm waking up with palpitations, right? So now I'm pairing up my mood swings. I'm having anxiety, palpitation. My period is starting to become irregular. I still don't have hot flashes. Does that mean that I'm not in perimenopause because I'm not having hot flashes? No. Based on what you're just describing, it looks like you're in full perimenopause, And then on top of that, you might start noticing the weight gain. Okay, so now we have the mood swings, we have anxiety or depression, and start having weight gain, and then I'm starting to forget things. I'm having brain fog, yes, and it goes on and on. And the crazy thing about it is that perimenopause can last up to 8 to 10 years. So that's why, as you add it phase by phase, when you look at it in its entirety, like, oh, that's what's going on, right? But individually, we usually can find a reason as to why. Oh, I'm irritable because of this. Oh, I'm feeling anxious because of that. Oh, I'm having this brain fog because of another reason. But when you pair it all together, then it starts making sense, right? Alrighty. So now, one of the ways that I think that can help you to really distinguish between the perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause is, let's do like the stage method, right? So stage, let me give you the stage method. So the S in the stage method. So, it can make it a little bit easier for you to distinguish between where you are right now and the next phase that's coming, right? So S is to remember that some of these symptoms are gonna overlap. So symptom overlap. We talked about perimenopause being that beginning phase, and it can be between 8 to 10 years, around when your hormones are fluctuating, but they're on their way out, but they're fluctuating nonetheless. And some of the overlapping symptoms with that, we talked about the brain fog. So the brain fog, when the estrogen level is low and dropping low, you'll have brain fog. In menopause, that day, and in postmenopause, the days after menopause, you might still have brain fog, right? So the symptoms we still overlap. You might still have that anxiety. You might still have, especially if you're not getting it treated and you're not getting it addressed, and you're not using methods and techniques to try to compensate for what's going on within your body naturally, what's naturally going on within your body, then yeah, you'll probably notice that there's some changes going on, and you'll notice some overlapping of the symptoms. But you have to remember that the symptoms overlap, but the timing doesn't, right? So all of this is a decline in your hormone. That's it. It's literally the science. It's your body doing what your body does, right? So hot flashes, mood changes, sleep trouble, they can show up in perimenopause, and it can also continue in menopause. And they can also happen during postmenopause, right? So the symptom alone is not going to tell you what's going on. Real talk, ladies. You've been Googling your symptoms, bringing your labs to your appointments, and still leaving with everything looks fine. It is not fine, and you know it. That is why I created the Hormone Manifesto, a 60-minute course that teaches you exactly what your hormone lab means, what optimal looks like for your body, and the exact questions to ask your provider at your next appointment. 6 modules, a clinical reference guide that you get to keep forever. Available nationwide for just $97. Grab it at go.trulybalancedwc.com/the-hormone-manifesto. Link is also in the show notes. Now back to menopause stories. So I say all this to say, don't go diagnosing yourself just based on the symptoms. You got to kind of have like an overarching understanding. And that's why you talk, you write things down. I'm noticing this change. I'm noticing this. Bring it to your doctor or your practitioner at your next visit, and boom, you guys come on with an understanding together and you come up with a plan together. All right. Now, the next thing, this goes along with what I just said, which is track your periods and track not just your symptoms. So track your periods. Now, tracking your periods. If you were like me and used to have super heavy, painful periods, they were so painful that some of my best friends from high school, they have a vision of me when my dad had to pick me up from school and throw me over his shoulder like a fireman, pulling someone out of a burning building, and just lump me over his shoulder and take me out of the school because I was in so much pain. Now, if you are someone who had that, and I think recently someone asked, and I'm starting at 12, after by my third period, I was having tons of cramp. So when my period started to lighten up, I was like, yes, and wasn't really tracking it. But you know what? You need to track your periods, because then you need to know. I was just so happy that they got light. But in tracking your periods, it'll give you an insight as to where are you during this phase, right? So tracking your periods gives your doctor, your practitioner, the ability to have an idea, say, oh, it's starting to lengthen. Okay, so now we are in that perimenopause phase. Oh, it's been 12 months straight. Good, you have hit menopause. But if you're not tracking, we won't really know, right? We have to guess. So you're tracking your periods, but not just your symptoms. But, keep track of your symptoms too. Because having that and being able to determine, that 12 month in a row, boom, you're here. And it also gives ideas of things that we need to look out for now that you are post-menopausal, right? So for the stages, S is know that their symptoms overlap, and T is track your periods. Now A is age is a clue, but it's not a diagnosis. Okay, guys? So A is age. Age, it's a clue, but it's not a diagnosis. Now, the average year that a woman enters menopause in the United States is usually around 51. But perimenopause can begin, like I said, in the 40s, but that's the average. A lot of people in their late 30s are going through perimenopause. And there's some women who have hit menopause by mid 40s, right? So and then there's some that they won't hit menopause until their late 50s. So the age alone is not going to say you are menopausal because you are this age. There's so many other factors that can go into play. What about when did your mama hit menopause, right? Sometimes it follows the track of your mom. If you saw that the docuseries on Balance, and when Jeannie Ma, she's like, Ma, when did you hit menopause? And her mom was like, in my 40s. And she says, oh, snap. Well, she didn't say snap, but because hey, so that particular person, their mom hit menopause in the 40s. So what's the likelihood is that she would most likely be hit menopause in her 40s, right? While there's some women, their moms hit menopause in their 50s, late 50s. some people early in the early 40s, and there are a few that might do it in the late 30s, but that's not common. On average in the US, 51 years of age is when most women, on average, that have been studied, hit menopause. Alrighty, so the G is getting labs alone won't actually help. Now, I know a lot of people like getting labs to have an idea of where you are, and that's fine. Labs don't usually confirm perimenopause, and I'm just being real. But I know sometimes it's like, I want to know if I am in menopause, if I'm in perimenopause, what does it look like? If you are going to do that, then you would need labs more than once. So one time won't give you the answer, right? Because as we mentioned, it's an undulating stage. So I could have gotten labs drawn on a day where my hormone levels are good. Does that mean like, no, you're not in perimenopause? No. I might have gotten it when the hormone levels are low. Does that mean that you are in menopause? No. We know that a definition is 12 months in a row without a period. That will tell you if you're menopausal or not, right? So labs, their levels can swing, they can be up and down, and so it can change from one day to the next. Now, when your labs should not be changing unless you are getting an intervention, such as you're on hormones replacement. Once you get to that postmenopausal, it's down. Like I said, with menopause and postmenopausal, your estrogen levels, your husband or your male significant others, your brothers, your cousins, your male cousins, they can have more estrogen than you, because that's how low it goes. It goes low. Okay? So, but getting it during the perimenopausal phase might not give you the answer that you're looking for. We talk about the pattern. The pattern is really keeping track of that period. Now, what are some times to get labs, right? Because there's like, well, what you mean it doesn't work, Dr. Beckford? When should I or should I not get labs? Yeah, no, you can get labs. You've had, like, say you are, boom, you're in perimenopause, right? And you are like truly dealing with it. Like, oh my gosh, this is disrupting my life. I don't even want to work anymore. I can't function. I can't concentrate. It's taken so much energy out of me. My muscles ache. I'm just like really, really deep into it. And I've gone to a practitioner or to a doctor, and I have gotten hormone replacements. Now, I'm on these hormone replacements, medication, but I'm feeling okay, but I'm not feeling like at my best. Like, I still am not there. The doc can get labs to see if you are absorbing. Like, say that they've increased the dose and you're still not doing well on it. You can get labs drawn so that we can see, are you absorbing the medication, or you are not absorbing the meds? Maybe they need to change the route. How would we know? Then you can get labs during that time to be able to determine. And also with certain hormones, like their testosterone is one of the replacement hormones. Testosterone needs to literally be within a certain range. If not, it can have irreversible changes within your body. So testosterone is a hormone that both us and males have. They just have it at a higher level than us females, right? So if the testosterone levels are super therapeutic, that's a medical term that is just way too far out the range, and you're not getting it tracked to ensure that you are within the therapeutic range and that you are having relief of it, Some of the irreversible changes that the testosterone can have is like hirsutism, medical term for you can start having hair growing, getting the chin and beard, right? You can also start having vocal changes. So if your job is talking and say, or you're a singer or using your voice, and your voice is known, having a super therapeutic and overly high dose of testosterone within your system on a consistent basis can change your voice. It can become deeper, right? That's what happens. So, yes, you'll need labs checked during those times. So, those are just some of the reasons to get labs done. So, the last part is the E, which every stage deserves care. So, that's we know that every stage deserves care. And it's not that it's more important when you're in perimenopause, or it's more important when that day of menopause, or it's more important when you are in postmenopause. No, every stage deserves care. And some of the cares that, is so important for us to do and to incorporate into part of our lives is sleep, right? Getting support of your sleep, getting support of your mood, getting support of the quality of your life, right? You might need support during the time that you are having one of the things we talked about, the genital urinary symptoms of menopause, right? So the syndrome that can occur where you're having a lot of discomfort during intercourse. Support is needed during that time, right? Sleep, brain fog. Brain fog might be at its highest. You're at work and you're just like, oh my gosh, right now it's taking me so much energy just to remember one thing. And those are things that used to be at the top of mind consistently. You might need support. How is your sleep? Are you getting quality rest, right? So all of that needs to be addressed. And none of it is something that you'd say it's only needs to be addressed during perimenopause, only needs to be addressed during menopause, or only needs to be addressed during the postmenopausal year. Every stage that you're having any discomfort, that's the stage that needs for you to get it addressed so that you can live quality life. This is not like I said, this phase is not a phase that we're going to just be put out to pasture. No, right? Our best years are ahead of us. And we can live that knowing that the best is yet to come. So all of this is something that's so important. And I hope this helps in understanding the difference between the perimenopause, menopause, and menopause, postmenopause. And you know what? Before we close, let me say, I want you to walk away with at least one thing from this episode. Alrighty? So the perimenopause, it's not like, okay, well, it's a waiting room for doom and gloom. Nah, we're not thinking that way, right? It's not a holding pattern because the real thing's about to start soon. No. Perimenopause is real. It deserves its own space and understanding, right? And it also deserves its own attention. And you know that once you're there, you might have your symptoms that will happen. Once you're keeping track of what's going on and you hit that 12-month mark on your period, you know that you're in your next stage. That day is menopause. And after that is your postmenopause, right? So if you're not sure what stage that you're in, I don't really want you just guessing. I would love that this information that we provided helped you to figure it out, right? But if you're still kind of like, I'm having these symptoms and I'm not really sure, you can book a complimentary consult with me at www.trulybalancedwc.com. We will look at your full picture together, and not just that one lab that you might have missed, but look at the full picture and see if working with me might be a way that will help you to feel better and to get back to that I hope this helped, and I want to thank you for spending time with me. If this episode really, really clicked for you, send it to a friend right? Leave me a review. Reviews are my love language, y'all. Leave me a review so that more people can see this information, right? And with that, I will see you guys next time. Take care. You've been listening to the Menopause Stories podcast. If today's conversation hit home, don't let your story stay stuck in that midlife hijack. Head over to the show notes to book your strategy session and to join the movement of women redefining their power. I'm Dr. Tamara Beckford. Stay optimized, stay bold, and I'll catch you on the next episode.